The porcelain teacups still held their warmth, wisps of steam curling into the evening air like unspoken questions. The lavender macarons I'd carefully prepared the night before remained perfectly arranged, untouched on the ivory serving plate. It was 6:45 p.m., the exact moment Marcus always crossed our threshold, but tonight would be different. Tonight, there would be no familiar sound of his key finding home. I found myself staring at that mahogany door longer than I should have, almost willing it to open, almost believing if I waited just one more minute. But there was only silence now, that particular brand of silence that seeps into your bones when something essential has been ripped away forever. My name is Vivian Cross. And for 17 years, I believed I was living inside a love story others could only dream about. Marcus was everything a woman could want. Composed, successful, the type of man whose mere presence could steady a room full of chaos. His voice never rose in anger. His promises never went unkept. Fresh orchids appeared every Saturday morning without fail. His shirts were always perfectly pressed, and he made sure I never had to think twice about our financial security. We never had children. Life simply unfolded for us like we were two matching pieces of an elegant puzzle, fitting together with effortless precision. But what I was about to discover would shatter that illusion completely. That perfect puzzle? It had pieces hidden in shadows I'd never been allowed to see. Marcus died on a Tuesday. The doctors called it a sudden cardiac event. Clinical words for a life ending in moments. Acute myocardial infarction, the specialist explained, his tone professional yet distant. It was instantaneous. He didn't suffer. I nodded mechanically, as if understanding the medical terminology could somehow change the outcome. As if knowing the science behind loss made it bearable. But nothing makes it bearable when the person who knew every corner of your soul is suddenly gone. The memorial service passed in a haze of black fabric and rehearsed condolences. Strangers approached with stories about my husband's kindness, his brilliance, his integrity. I gripped my best friend Elena's hand through it all. She'd been my anchor since our university days, constantly pressing bottles of water into my hands that I couldn't drink, offering plates of food my stomach couldn't accept. Everything shifted when my sister Rebecca arrived. Her perfume, too floral, too aggressive, announced her before she even spoke. Her embrace lasted seconds too long. Her whispered words just slightly off-key. "I'm devastated, Viv," she murmured against my ear, her voice too smooth, too practiced. Marcus was family to me. True family. Something in her tone made my skin prickle, but I pushed the feeling away. This was grief talking, nothing more. That evening, as she helped herself to herbal tea in my kitchen, she dropped her bomb with casual cruelty. "Listen, I know the timing is awful, but Marcus lent me some money a while back. Now that the estate is being settled, I was hoping we could square that away." I turned slowly. "What money?" She blinked, then gave me that patronizing smile I'd known since childhood. "Oh, he didn't mention it?" How typical of him, always so discreet. Something cold and sharp twisted in my chest. Before we continue this journey into the darkest corners of betrayal, if stories of deception and ultimate revenge captivate you, the way they do thousands of our viewers, make sure you're subscribed. Trust me, what's coming next will leave you breathless. That night, sleep became impossible. I wandered through our home like a ghost, my fingers trailing across furniture that suddenly felt foreign. The leather-bound books he'd collected, the hardwood floors we'd chosen together, our wedding portrait that now seemed to mock me from its silver frame. That's when I noticed them. Marcus's keys still resting on the console table where he'd left them. Among the familiar house and car keys was one I'd never been permitted to touch, distinctly different in shape, heavier somehow. The key to his workshop that I'd inquired about it once years earlier. Nothing interesting there, he'd assured me with that easy smile. Just equipment, tools, motor oil. You'd hate it. I hadn't pushed. I never pushed. That was our dynamic, comfortable, effortless, full of unspoken boundaries I'd learned not to cross. But now I had nothing left to lose. The following morning I drove to his workshop. It sat in the old manufacturing district, tucked behind deteriorating warehouses with corroded metal roofs and weeds pushing through fractured concrete. Not exactly where you'd expect someone like Marcus to keep anything valuable. Yet he'd gone there religiously, every Tuesday afternoon without fail. I'd never questioned it. Never wondered. The steel door protested as I pushed it open, the key turning with reluctant acceptance. For a moment I hesitated at the threshold, terrified of what truths might be waiting in the darkness. The space smelled of dust and machinery. My hand found the light switch. Then I saw everything. It wasn't a workshop. Not even close. It was a monument to deception I'd never imagined possible. My legs carried me forward on autopilot as fluorescent bulbs flickered overhead, illuminating the most disturbing room I'd ever encountered. Every wall was completely covered. Photographs, newspaper clippings, hand-drawn diagrams, international maps. The east wall displayed dozens of printed photographs arranged in obsessive rows, and every single image featured Marcus, but not the Marcus I'd married. This version wore faded denim and wrinkled t-shirts. His hair was disheveled, his guard completely down. He looked free, genuinely happy in a way I hadn't seen in years. And beside him in nearly every photo stood the same woman. She was stunning, at least 12 years my junior, with raven hair and penetrating, intelligent eyes. Their body language screamed intimacy, her fingers on his forearm, his face turned toward her with unguarded affection. The locations varied. A coastal sunset, a mountain lodge, an intimate candlelit restaurant. Dates were meticulously written on the backs: 8 years ago, 6 years, 4 years, and then one that made my blood freeze: September 2024. Just 3 months ago. That exact evening, I'd been home preparing his favorite roasted salmon, waiting for him to return from what he'd called an urgent client consultation, but this photograph showed him at what looked like a family gathering, seated beside this woman and a man who appeared to be in his early 30s. The three of them radiated warmth, connection, family. Marcus's handwriting on the back simply read, Isabella and Logan, September 2024. My knees buckled. I grabbed the metal desk for support, and that's when I saw the paperwork. Stacks upon stacks of documents, bank transfers to accounts I'd never heard of, corporate records for companies that didn't exist in my world, correspondence from international firms, tax filings that contradicted everything I thought I knew about his business. Then, in a manila folder marked confidential, I found the medical report. My eyes locked onto the letterhead, Crescent Cardiac Institute, dated just 7 weeks ago. Marcus's name printed clearly at the top, followed by a diagnosis that made my hands shake: advanced ischemic heart disease. Stage 3. Imminent risk of cardiac arrest. He knew. He'd known he was dying. He'd known. And instead of telling me, instead of preparing me, instead of giving us a chance to say goodbye properly, he'd spent his remaining weeks maintaining this elaborate deception with another woman, another life, another family. Because that young man in the photograph, he had to be there. My stomach churned violently. 17 years. 17 years I'd stood beside him, loved him, trusted him completely. The night before he died, he presented me with a diamond bracelet, kissed my forehead and whispered, "You're my everything, Vivian." I stumbled backward toward the exit, struggling to breathe, my chest constricting like I might follow him into cardiac arrest. What was I supposed to do with this knowledge? Who was I now? A widow, certainly. But widow to whom exactly? That's when I heard them, footsteps, deliberately quiet, like someone hoping to go unnoticed. I spun around, my heart hammering against my ribs. Standing in the doorway was the young man from the photographs. Same dark hair meticulously styled, same sharp bone structure, same intense, unreadable gaze that seemed to see straight through me. His voice was controlled when he spoke, though I was too stunned to process the words immediately. "Vivian Cross?" he asked. I couldn't form words. "I thought you might come here eventually." "I'm Logan Myers," he said, stepping inside with careful movements. "Marcus Cross was my father." And just like that, the ground disappeared beneath me entirely. I don't remember what words escaped my lips first. Perhaps nothing at all. Maybe I just stood there, gripping that cold metal desk like it was the only thing anchoring me to reality. Logan moved closer, measured and cautious. As if he understood we were navigating a minefield of shattered trust, I studied him. Really studied him, searching for proof this wasn't some elaborate nightmare. But there was no denying it. Those eyes, they were Marcus's. The same penetrating stare that could convey volumes without uttering a sound. You're really his son." I finally managed, my voice barely a whisper. "Yes." Logan answered without hesitation. And I'm sorry. This isn't how I wanted you to find out. How long? I asked, the words scraping my throat. How long have you known about me? My entire life, he said, no trace of apology in his tone. He was always honest about being married. He told me you didn't know I existed. He compartmentalized everything, kept us in completely separate worlds. My mother, Isabella, she accepted those terms. She never wanted to destroy what you had. But she's gone now, he continued, his voice dropping. She passed away 14 months ago. After that, everything changed. Passed away. So she was gone too, just like Marcus. I sank into the dusty office chair, my legs refusing to support me any longer. Why are you here? I asked. Why today? Logan reached into his messenger bag and withdrew a document, aged and folded. He extended it toward me, and I hesitated before accepting it. It's a draft will, he explained. Unofficial, unnotarized. My father gave this to me 3 weeks before he died. He said the legal version would go to you, but this was insurance. I unfolded the paper with trembling fingers. Marcus's familiar handwriting flowed across the page, the same elegant script that had signed anniversary cards and left me mourning notes. But these weren't love letters. These were divisions of assets, mentions of Logan, references to a company called Northern Shield Holdings that I'd never heard of, and one cryptic line that made my blood chill. Access to remaining documents secured in private vault. Authentication linked to recent gift to V. I froze. The bracelet. The diamond bracelet he'd given me just 3 nights before his death. That wasn't just a gift. It was a key. I touched my wrist instinctively, though I wasn't wearing it. I'd left it at home, tucked in its velvet box because it had felt too heavy with meaning. Now it felt even heavier. What's Northern Shield Holdings? I asked, still scanning the document. Logan took a measured breath. One of his shadow companies. Completely off the books. He used it for international fund transfers. After Mom died, I started investigating. There were transactions I couldn't track, offshore accounts established in my name that I never authorized. I think he was trying to protect something or someone. Maybe all of us. My mouth went dry. Why? Because he knew his time was running out, Logan said quietly. And because he didn't trust his business partners. I looked up sharply. What partners? Logan's expression darkened. He never gave me names. Only said that if something happened to him, certain people would come looking. Looking for information, for leverage, for whatever he'd hidden. I stood slowly, my legs still unsteady, and surveyed the room with new eyes. This wasn't just a shrine to deception anymore. It was evidence. It was a warning. You're telling me there's more, I said. That everything here, the will, the photos, the files, this is just the surface? Logan nodded. I think he left breadcrumbs. Not just for us, but to protect us. I moved toward the door, then stopped. I need to go home. I need that bracelet. Can I come with you? Logan asked. If you'll allow it. I paused, then nodded. Because whether I wanted it or not, we were bound together now by Marcus's web of lies that I didn't go home immediately. I couldn't. I needed space to process, to breathe, to scream into the void if necessary. So I called Elena. Within 30 minutes, I was on her couch, clutching a mug of chamomile tea I wasn't drinking, the diamond bracelet laid out on the coffee table between us like evidence at a crime scene. Elena didn't bombard me with questions. She never did. She waited until I was ready. And when I finally told her everything, the workshop, the photographs, Logan, the will, she didn't say, I told you so. Though she'd had suspicions about Marcus for years. She simply whispered, oh Viv, and took my hand. But I wasn't ready for tears. Not yet. I needed answers. I needed someone to blame besides a dead man who couldn't defend himself, so I drove to Rebecca's penthouse. If you're finding yourself at the edge of your seat, wondering how deep this betrayal goes, you're not alone. Thousands of viewers have been captivated by stories just like this one. Hit that subscribe button now, because what Rebecca's about to reveal will change everything. Rebecca lived in one of those gleaming high-rise buildings on the north side, all glass and steel with fingerprint entry, a doorman and underground parking. Expensive. Too expensive for someone who constantly complained about being broke. As the elevator climbed, my anger rose with it, floor by floor, until I could taste it metallic and sharp. She answered the door barefoot, wearing silk loungewear, a glass of sparkling cider in hand. Her makeup was flawless, her hair styled like she was expecting someone important. "Well, look who it is," she purred with that practiced smile. "My grieving sister, come to check on her inheritance?" "Cut the act, Rebecca," I snapped. "We need to talk." I pushed past her into the living room, where a framed photograph immediately caught my attention. It was her and Marcus laughing, toasting with champagne flutes. The timestamp in the corner made my stomach lurch. 6 years ago. "What the hell is this?" I demanded, pointing at the frame. Rebecca glided over, taking a slow sip of her drink. "Oh, that? Company anniversary gala. You had one of your migraines, remember? Marcus insisted I accompany him instead." She said it so casually, like substituting for your sister's husband at formal events was perfectly normal. "We always had such wonderful chemistry," she added, her eyes glinting. I turned to face her fully. "How wonderful exactly?" Her smirk wavered slightly. "I know about Isabella," I said, my voice deadly calm. "I know about Logan, the workshop, the fake companies, the secret will. I know everything. So if there's more, Rebecca, tell me now." Her eyes narrowed. She walked to her bar cart, refilled her glass with steady hands, then spoke softly. "Fine. You want the truth." She set down her glass and placed a hand on her abdomen. "I'm pregnant," she said. "And it's Marcus's." The world stopped spinning. All sound disappeared. My brain simply shut down, unable to process this final betrayal. 12 weeks along, she continued, her voice eerily calm. "I found out 2 weeks before he died. He knew. He promised he'd handle everything. He even said he'd leave Isabella permanently." I stood frozen. "You were seeing him even after Isabella died?" Rebecca shrugged, a gesture so casual it made me want to scream. "She was never meant to be permanent. I was always the one who stayed." I felt like I was floating outside my body watching this scene from above. The walls, the expensive furniture, the hum of the central air. Everything faded to white noise. "You slept with my husband?" I whispered, the words barely audible. Rebecca rolled her eyes. "Don't act so shocked, Vivian. You had your perfect little life, your flawless house, your dinner parties, your scheduled date nights. Meanwhile, I was drowning in debt, working dead-end jobs, listening to everyone compare us like I was some discount version of you." She moved closer, her eyes sharp as glass. "Then Marcus started coming around, offering help, actually listening. You were his obligation. I was his choice." The slap happened before I consciously decided to raise my hand. Rebecca's head snapped sideways, her glass shattering on the marble floor. She didn't cry. She didn't yell. She just smiled, a cold, satisfied smile. "There she is," she said softly. "Not the perfect, composed wife. The real Vivian. The one who just discovered her entire life was a performance." I turned away, breathing hard, my whole body trembling. "Why didn't you tell me?" "Because you wouldn't have believed me," she said. "You always thought I was jealous. And maybe I was. But this wasn't about you, Viv. For once in my life, this was about me getting something for myself." I shook my head slowly. "You didn't get something. You stole everything." She stepped closer, her expression suddenly unreadable. "Say whatever you need to say, but that baby growing inside me? That's your family now, whether you accept it or not." My throat constricted. I wanted to rage, to break things, to rewind time itself. But instead I heard myself say, "I'll honor whatever Marcus left in his will. Not for you, for the child. They didn't choose this chaos." Rebecca blinked, genuine surprise flickering across her face. "You mean that?" "I don't know what I mean," I whispered. "But I know I need to leave. Now." I walked toward the door, glass crunching under my heels, when Rebecca called out, "Vivian, how did Marcus really die?" I didn't answer. Because suddenly I wasn't sure of anything anymore. I didn't return home that night. That house, with its carefully curated memories and pristine surfaces, felt like a mausoleum now. Instead, I went back to Elena's, clutching the diamond bracelet like it might burn through my palm. She didn't ask where I'd been. One look at my face told her everything. "You need rest," she said simply, but sleep was impossible. Not when every corner of my mind was collapsing inward. The next morning, Logan picked me up in a silver sedan. Elena insisted on coming too. "You're not walking into your husband's secret vault without backup," she declared, throwing on her coat. "That's how people disappear in movies." Marcus's office was in a downtown high-rise, all chrome and glass reaching toward the sky. He'd always called it his satellite workspace, somewhere for confidential meetings, he'd said. I'd never once been inside. Logan had a key card. "I'm listed as an authorized user," he explained, scanning us through security. The receptionist barely glanced up. Marcus had constructed his deception so thoroughly, it required no explanation. The elevator ride felt eternal. On the 16th floor, Logan led us to a corner office with floor-to-ceiling windows and minimalist furniture. Everything was gray and cold, sanitized of personality. Not a single photograph of me. No memories, no warmth. Just sleek surfaces and the faint scent of expensive cologne I didn't recognize. "There," Logan pointed to an abstract painting mounted behind the executive desk. "The vault's behind that." I retrieved the bracelet from my purse. My fingers found a tiny mechanism hidden in the clasp. I twisted it counterclockwise. Click. A hidden compartment opened, revealing a thin metallic chip no bigger than a fingernail. Numbers were etched along its edge. Logan carefully inserted it into a concealed panel. A soft beep, then a mechanical whisper as the vault door opened. Inside, stacks of documents, leather-bound ledgers, a matte black flash drive, a small mahogany box, and a single silver key with a tag reading Safety Deposit Box, First National Trust. Logan pulled out the documents, contracts, wire transfers, financial statements. These names, they're all international institutions. He wasn't just hiding money. He was moving it globally and fast. I picked up the flash drive but didn't dare plug it in yet. Then I opened the mahogany box. Inside was a ring, a simple platinum band with a modest diamond. My breath caught. It wasn't mine. Inside the band, an inscription. I forever. I for Isabella. Not V. Not me. Never me. Christ. Elena whispered beside me. Logan looked away, jaw clenched. He bought her a ring, I said, my voice hollow. He was going to propose. Or maybe he already had. I couldn't move, couldn't think, couldn't cry. Because there, in the sterile silence of my dead husband's secret office, I finally understood the truth I'd been avoiding. He loved her. He might have cared for me in some obligatory way. But Isabella, she got the real Marcus. The one who smiled genuinely in photographs, who took spontaneous vacations, who laughed freely. And me. I got the performance. The scheduled husband with dinner at 7, orchids on Saturdays, and a vault full of secrets. Then Logan handed me an envelope. My name written across it in Marcus's handwriting. I unfolded it with shaking hands. "Vivian, if you're reading this, then I'm gone and all my carefully constructed walls have finally collapsed. I'm sorry. I know those words are worthless now, carved into paper when they should have been spoken face to face, but I was a coward. I built two separate worlds because I couldn't bear to lose either one. And in the end, that greed cost me everything. I did love you. I know how empty that sounds now, maybe it always was, but I loved you in the only way I knew how, with stability, with comfort, with safety. That's what I thought you needed. That's what I told myself you wanted. But I need you to understand something crucial. You were never the one I was protecting my secrets from. You were the one I was trying to protect. I waited too long to do the right thing, and now the wolves are circling." He paused in the letter, and I could almost see him struggling with the next words. "There's someone you need to be extremely careful around. Someone you trust far more than you should." My pulse slowed to a crawl. "It's Rebecca." The office went silent. Even the air seemed to stop moving. What happened between us wasn't just weakness on my part. It wasn't that simple. She orchestrated it from the beginning. When I tried to end things 8 months ago, she became someone else entirely. She said if I left her, she'd expose everything. The offshore accounts, the shell companies, Every buried transaction I'd made to keep you protected from my business partners. The pregnancy wasn't an accident, Vivian. Nothing with Rebecca ever is. My hands trembled as I continued reading. And there's something else. I believe she killed Isabella. The paper slipped from my fingers. Elena gasped beside me. Logan's face went pale. I retrieved the letter with numb fingers and kept reading. I can't prove it. But the timing was too perfect. Isabella had just told me she was leaving, starting fresh. She booked a one-way ticket to Barcelona, packed everything. Then the accident, single car. No witnesses, rural road. The investigator said brake failure. But she'd had the car service 48 hours before. Rebecca knew about Isabella. She knew about the pregnancy. She knew Isabella was leaving. And suddenly Isabella was dead. The official report said accident. No evidence of tampering. But Rebecca had access to Isabella's schedule. She knew her routes. And she had everything to gain. Elena covered her mouth. Logan's knuckles were white as he gripped the desk. I tried to fix this. I moved the money, created contingencies, made sure that if something happened to me, you'd have leverage. I'm sorry it took this level of destruction for me to finally act. I was weak, Vivian. But you're not. You never were. If you want to walk away from all of this, take what's yours and disappear. But if you choose to fight, if you choose to expose it all, don't do it alone. Trust Logan. Trust your instincts. And whatever you do, don't trust Rebecca. Forgive me if you can. If not, I understand. Marcus, I stared at the letter until the words blurred together. Then I handed it to Elena. She read it silently, then passed it to Logan. None of us spoke. What was there to say? The man we'd all thought we knew had shattered into 1,000 pieces, and we were left holding fragments of a stranger. We left the office in stunned silence. The kind that doesn't come from peace, but from the complete absence of words adequate enough for the situation. Elena drove. Logan sat beside me in the back, and I stared out at the city blurring past, watching my old life disappear in the rearview mirror. My husband had lived multiple lives, and now I was holding evidence of all of them. But I had no idea who else might be watching, waiting. That night, as I lay sleepless on Elena's pull-out couch, my phone rang. Unknown number. Vivian Cross. A man's voice, smooth as aged whiskey, dangerous as broken glass. Yes, I answered, already on edge. This is Gordon Blake. I was a business associate of your husband's. My stomach plummeted. I believe you have something that belongs to me. I don't know what you're talking about. Yes, you do, he said, calm as still water before a storm. The documents from Marcus's vault. Some of them concern international transfers I facilitated. I suggest we meet to discuss this. I'm not meeting anyone. You will, he said with absolute certainty. Because the other people Marcus worked with? They're not as civilized as I am. They don't ask nicely. The line went dead. I stared at the ceiling until dawn, my heart racing. In the morning, I told Logan about the call. His jaw clenched as he paced Elena's living room. He contacted me too, he said. But there's more. Last night, someone else called. He handed me a slip of paper with a name, Victor Crane. He claims he's the original source of the funds Marcus moved. He said if we don't return everything by week's end, there will be consequences. I didn't ask what kind of consequences. The threat was clear enough. Logan pulled out the silver key from the vault. We still have the safety deposit box. Whatever's inside might explain who really owns what. But do we really want to open another box? I finished, trying to keep my voice steady. What if it just makes everything worse? Elena sat down beside me. Not knowing is what's killing you, Viv. At least with knowledge you can fight back. She was right. So we made a plan. First the bank. Then if things still didn't make sense, we'd find someone who could decode Marcus's web. Someone who knew him before all the lies. There's a name, Logan said suddenly. My mother mentioned him once. Edward Holloway. She said he was Marcus's college roommate, the only person who ever told him the truth, even when he didn't want to hear it. Do you know where to find him? Mom kept his address in Savannah. Emergency contact, she called it. So we drove. 3 hours through morning rain, the windshield wipers beating a rhythm like a countdown to truth. Savannah greeted us with Spanish moss and thick humidity, the kind of southern atmosphere that holds secrets like a vault. Edward lived in a Victorian townhouse drowning in ivy, like something from a Gothic novel. He opened the door before we could knock. "You're Vivian," he said without question. "And you must be Logan. You knew we'd come." He nodded slowly. "Marcus said if everything fell apart, you'd find me." He led us inside. The house smelled of old books and pipe tobacco. Shelves lined every wall, floor to ceiling. A piano sat in the corner, its surface polished but dusty, like a memory preserved but never revisited. He disappeared into another room, returning with a sealed envelope, thick with age. "He left this with me 15 years ago," Edward said, "only to be opened if both of you appeared together." Logan and I exchanged glances. I broke the seal inside. Another handwritten letter and a second will. This one was different, more detailed, more recent, and it named the child Rebecca carried. 28% of Marcus's offshore holdings, held in trust until the child turned 21. I felt the blood drain from my face. He'd planned for this. Even her pregnancy. Even this betrayal. Why would he include the baby but not Rebecca? I asked Edward. "Because he trusted the innocence of the child," Edward replied gently. "Not the mother." Logan shifted beside me. "This changes everything. Rebecca can't touch that money. Not legally." I looked down at the will again. "And if she tries?" Edward nodded toward the flash drive we'd brought. "Then you use that. Marcus told me it contains everything, every transfer, every partner, every illegal transaction they made to build their empire. If they push you, you push back harder." Elena exhaled sharply. "You have leverage." For the first time since Marcus died, I didn't feel powerless. I didn't feel like the naive wife who'd been deceived and discarded. I felt like the only person left standing with the complete blueprint. And that was power. Before we dive into the final confrontation, where everything Marcus built comes crashing down, make sure you're following along. The revenge that's coming? You won't want to miss a single moment of it. Logan leaned forward. "Vivian, it's time we stop reacting to their moves. We need to strike first before Blake or Crane do." I nodded slowly. "We go to the bank tomorrow." We drove back to the city as the sun set, painting the sky the color of old blood. The Federal Trust building stood discreet between a law firm and an antique shop, the kind of place you'd walk past 1,000 times without noticing until your whole life depended on what was hidden inside. Elena waited in the car. "Text me if anything feels wrong," she said. "And if they give you trouble, cry. Nobody refuses a grieving widow at a bank." Logan almost smiled. I couldn't. Inside, the vault manager examined the silver key, checked my ID twice, then raised an eyebrow. "This box hasn't been accessed in 7 years, he said. "It's registered under Northern Shield Holdings." He led us through 3 security checkpoints, down into the basement where the air grew cold and thick. The silence felt alive, pressing against us from all sides. "Standard protocol," he said, handing us latex gloves. "I'll give you privacy." The door sealed behind him with a mechanical hiss. My hand hovered over the lock. "Ready?" Logan asked. "No," I admitted. But I turned the key anyway. The box slid out smoothly. Inside wasn't what I expected. No cash, no fake passports, no stacks of untraceable bills. Just one manila envelope and a single photograph. The photo showed Marcus, Logan, Gordon Blake, and Victor Crane standing in front of a black Bentley, all of them laughing like old friends at a reunion. The casualness of it, the genuine warmth in their faces, it made my skin crawl. "They weren't just business partners," I said slowly. "They were friends. Real friends." Logan opened the envelope. Inside, signed contracts, shell company registrations, documented bribes, and one file marked in red ink, Crane insurance policy. It wasn't just leverage. It was a loaded weapon. "Marcus kept proof," I whispered. "Of everything." And in that moment I understood completely. He hadn't just left me a mess to clean up. He'd left me the power to destroy them all. Now I had to decide who to aim at first. We didn't go home. We went straight to the lawyer. Marcus's estate attorney was named Jonathan Doyle, sharp, discreet, and allergic to drama. I told him almost everything. Not about Rebecca, not about the affairs, just the parts that mattered legally. The documents, the threats, the offshore accounts. He didn't even blink. Do you want to press criminal charges? No, I said firmly. I want protection. He nodded. Then we make copies of everything. Digital backups, physical copies, cloud storage. 3 separate locations minimum. 1 here in my safe, 1 with you. 1 with someone unconnected to this situation. I know just the person, Elena said with grim satisfaction. We spent the next 4 hours scanning every document. Marcus had been meticulous. Names, dates, wire transfers, fraudulent invoices. This wasn't just shady dealing. It was organized crime, international in scope. And with Marcus gone, they thought the evidence had vanished with him. They were wrong. By evening, Jonathan had drafted a simple but devastating letter. I added 1 line at the bottom in my own handwriting. Come near me or my family again and everything goes public. VC. We sent it via courier to Gordon Blake's office. He called within 12 minutes. You think you're clever? He hissed through the phone. I think I'm protected, I replied calmly. And unless you want the FBI and Interpol crawling through your entire operation, you'll stay away. There was a pause, then bitter laughter. All right, Mrs. Cross. What exactly do you want? Nothing, I said. I want absolutely nothing from you. No contact, no threats, no late-night phone calls. You come near me or anyone I care about, and every single document goes public. Every signature, every crime. You're playing a dangerous game. No, I corrected him. I'm ending the game. The difference is I have nothing left to lose. He hung up. 2 hours later, Victor Crane called. His voice was different from Blake's. Smooth, cultured, like someone who'd learned to weaponize charm. Vivian, he said, as if we were old friends. I heard about your recent discoveries. I think we've gotten off on the wrong foot. There is no right foot, Mr. Crane. Just your signature on dozens of federal crimes. He chuckled softly. Allegedly, of course. I let the silence stretch, then said, I know men like you think you can handle anything. But here's something you haven't considered. I have no reputation to protect anymore. No business to save. No image to maintain. The life I thought I had is already destroyed. And that, Mr. Crane, makes me extremely dangerous. That shut him up. Stay away, I continued. Or I'll burn it all down, and I'll make sure you're standing in the center when I do. I ended the call. Logan and I sat on Elena's back porch that night, the flash drive in his pocket, copies of everything hidden in places even we'd have to think twice to remember. Paranoid? Maybe. But when the person you trusted most has lied about everything, paranoia starts feeling like wisdom. I didn't know he was capable of all this, Logan said quietly, staring at the stars. Mom always said he was complicated, but I thought she meant troubled, not criminal. I finished. He nodded. He was both, I said. And probably more we'll never understand. The stars above us were cold and distant, completely indifferent to human betrayal. We're not done yet, I said. There's still the flash drive. Logan frowned. We copied it. We know what's on it. No, I said. We copied the files. But there was a video file. Password protected. And I think I know what it contains. The flash drive was small, black, unremarkable, like it held nothing worth knowing unless you asked it the right questions. We didn't open that video file that night or the next morning. Took me 3 days. 3 days of preparing myself for whatever final truth Marcus had encrypted behind that password. 3 days of rehearsing my reactions, as if practice could somehow soften the blow of betrayal. Logan sat beside me on Elena's couch. She brought tea, always tea, as if chamomile could cure deception. No one spoke as I plugged in the drive and navigated to the locked file. The password prompt appeared. I typed in the date of our wedding anniversary. Nothing. His birthday. Nothing. Then, on instinct, I entered the date Isabella died. The file opened at a single video, recorded just 12 days before Marcus's death. My finger hovered over the play button, then clicked. The screen flickered to life. Marcus appeared, but not the Marcus from our wedding albums or family dinners. This version looked hollow, exhausted, like he hadn't slept in weeks. His shirt was wrinkled, his face unshaven, his eyes carrying the weight of secrets that were finally crushing him. He leaned toward the camera. "Vivian," he said, his voice rough. "If you're watching this, then I'm gone and you've found everything. The accounts, the companies, the lies. All of it." He rubbed his face, struggling with the next words. "There's no graceful way to say this, so I'll just say it. You were never the one I was hiding things from. You were the one I was desperately trying to protect. But I waited too long. And now the danger is inside your own family." My heart slowed to a crawl. "It's Rebecca." The room went completely still. What happened between us? It wasn't just my weakness. She orchestrated it from the very beginning. 18 months ago, she started showing up at my office. Little things at first, dropping off lunch, asking for financial advice. Then she found out about Isabella. I don't know how, but she knew. And she used that knowledge like a weapon. He paused, his jaw clenching. The night I tried to end things with her. 10 months ago, she transformed into someone I didn't recognize. She said if I left her, she'd destroy everything. Not just expose the affairs, but the offshore accounts, the federal crimes, every buried transaction. She had photos, recordings, documents I didn't even know existed. She'd been collecting evidence for over a year. He looked directly into the camera, and his next words made my blood freeze. "Vivian, I believe she killed Isabella." Elena gasped. Logan's fists clenched so tight his knuckles went white. "I can't prove it in court," Marcus continued, his voice shaking. "But the timing was too perfect. Isabella had just told me she was leaving the country, starting fresh in Portugal. She'd packed everything, bought a one-way ticket for her and Logan. She was supposed to leave that Tuesday. Then Monday night, the accident. Single car, rural road, no witnesses. The investigator said brake failure." He leaned closer to the camera. "But Isabella had her car serviced 2 days before. Full inspection. The mechanic said the brakes were perfect. Rebecca knew Isabella's routine. She knew what route she took home from her evening yoga class. She had access to the parking garage. And that night, 3 hours before Isabella died, Rebecca sent me a text that just said, 'Problem solved.' My hands were shaking so violently I had to clasp them together. I confronted her," Marcus said. "She smiled and said it was about a work issue. But her eyes. Vivian, I've never seen anything so cold. She was already pregnant by then. She knew I couldn't go to the police without destroying everything, including you. So I did the only thing I could. I started moving money, creating evidence, building a case that you could use after I was gone." He looked away, then back at the camera. "Because I knew my heart was failing. The doctors gave me 3 months at most. And I knew that once I was dead, Rebecca would come for you. For everything." He pulled out a document, holding it up to the camera. "This is a signed confession from someone who saw Rebecca near Isabella's car that night. They're too scared to come forward while she's free. But if you need it, their contact information is in the safety deposit box at First National. Box 1847. The video paused, then continued. "I'm sorry, Vivian. For all of it. I was a coward who built castles on quicksand, and now you're left standing in the ruins. But you're stronger than I ever was. And unlike me, you'll do the right thing. One more thing, the baby Rebecca's carrying? I had a paternity test done without her knowing. The results are in the Northern Shield Holdings file. Do what you want with that information." The screen went black and I sat there, unable to move, unable to breathe, unable to process what I just learned. My sister hadn't just betrayed me. She was a killer. Logan stood up abruptly. "We need to go to the police." "With what?" I asked, my voice hollow. "A video confession from a dead man? An unnamed witness who won't come forward? She's covered her tracks perfectly." "Then what do we do?" Elena asked. I stood up slowly, my mind suddenly crystal clear. "We don't send her to prison. We do something worse. We take away everything she thought she'd won." Rebecca didn't know I'd seen the video. She didn't know about the evidence, the witness, or the paternity test I was about to check. When I invited her to lunch at an upscale restaurant downtown, she accepted immediately, probably thinking I was ready to hand over my husband's fortune. She arrived 15 minutes late, wearing a designer dress that hugged her growing belly, her smile radiant with false sympathy. "Vivian," she cooed, air-kissing my cheek. "You look tired, darling. This must all be so overwhelming. Sit down, Rebecca." Something in my tone made her pause, but she sat, ordering sparkling water with lime from the hovering waiter. I waited until he left, then placed a folder on the table between us. "What's this?" she asked, her smile faltering. "Open it." She did, her face slowly draining of color as she saw the contents. The paternity test results. Marcus wasn't the father. The actual father was a man named Daniel Morrison. Someone she'd been seeing concurrently, probably as backup. "This is fake," she whispered. "No, it's not. And we both know it." Her hands trembled as she closed the folder. "You can't prove anything." "I don't have to," I said calmly. "Because here's what's going to happen. You're going to leave. Tonight. You're going to move across the country, California, Florida, I don't care where. You're going to have your baby and live your life, but you will never contact me again. You will never mention Marcus's name. And you will never try to claim a single cent of his money. You can't." "Or," I interrupted, "I release everything. The video of Marcus explaining how you killed Isabella. The witness who saw you that night. The forensic evidence he gathered. The paternity test. All of it goes to the police, the media, and every single person you've ever tried to impress." She stared at me, her mask finally cracking. "You wouldn't. The scandal would destroy you, not me. I'm already the grieving widow. But you? You'd be the sister who slept with my husband, lied about the baby's paternity, and possibly committed murder. Even if you beat the charges, your life as you know it would be over." Rebecca's perfectly manicured nails dug into the table. "He promised me. He promised everyone something." I cut her off. "The difference is, I'm the only one left to collect." I stood up, dropping cash on the table for the water she'd ordered. "You have 24 hours to disappear, Rebecca. And if you ever come back, if you ever contact me or anyone I care about, I'll destroy you so thoroughly that you'll wish you'd taken the prison sentence instead." I walked out, leaving her sitting there, her empire of lies crumbling around her. If you've been holding your breath through this journey of deception and revenge, you're witnessing what thousands of our viewers already know. Sometimes the greatest revenge isn't destruction, it's walking away with your power intact. Follow now for more stories that will leave you speechless. That evening, Gordon Blake and Victor Crane both received packages. Inside each one, a flash drive containing just enough evidence to destroy the other. Not enough to implicate themselves directly, but enough to make them turn on each other like the rats they were. Logan watched as I sealed the packages. "You're making them destroy each other." "I'm giving them a choice," I corrected. "They can either walk away and leave us alone, or they can try to save themselves by burning the other one down. Either way, they're finished." Within 48 hours, both men had fled the country. Blake to Switzerland, Crane to the Caymans. The FBI found enough evidence in their abandoned offices to launch a federal investigation that would take years to untangle. But Marcus's name, carefully scrubbed from the documents I provided, would never surface. Rebecca disappeared as ordered. The last I heard, she was in Arizona, working at a yoga studio, raising a child she claimed was from a brief relationship with a man who'd conveniently died in a hiking accident. The locals believed her. They had no reason not to. I met with Logan one last time at Marcus's grave. It was a simple headstone, just his name and dates. No loving husband. No devoted father. Just facts. "What will you do now?" he asked. "Start over," I said. "Somewhere nobody knows this story. Somewhere I can be just Vivian again. Not the widow, not the betrayed wife, not the woman who brought down a criminal enterprise. And the money? The legitimate money goes to charities. The offshore accounts that belong to Blake and Crane's victims get returned anonymously. And the rest?" I looked at him. "You're his son. His only real child. It belongs to you." Logan shook his head. "I don't want it. Not any of it." "Then we donate it all," I said. "Every cent. Let something good come from all these lies." He nodded and we stood there in comfortable silence, two strangers bound together by a dead man's deception, finally free to walk away. 3 weeks later, I stood in the empty house I'd shared with Marcus for 17 years. Everything was packed, sold, or donated. The walls were bare, the rooms empty, the memories boxed away in storage I'd never visit. Elena helped me carry the last box to my car. "Where will you go?" "Montana," I said. "I bought a small place near Glacier National Park. Mountain views, no neighbors for miles, and nobody who cares about my past." "And you're okay?" "Really okay." I considered the question. Was I okay? My husband had lived multiple lives. My sister had betrayed me in the worst possible way. And I discovered I was capable of orchestrating revenge with surgical precision. "I'm not okay," I admitted. "But I'm free. And that's enough for now." Elena hugged me tightly. "Call me when you get there." "I will." As I drove away from Charleston, away from the ghosts and graves and elaborate lies, I thought about the woman I'd been 6 weeks ago. The one who'd set the table for a husband who would never come home. The one who'd believed in the performance of a perfect marriage. That woman was gone, buried with Marcus and all his secrets. The woman driving toward the mountains was someone new. Someone who'd learned that trust should be earned, not given. Someone who'd discovered that revenge didn't have to be loud or violent. Sometimes the quietest revenges were the most complete. My phone rang as I crossed the state line. Unknown number. For a moment my heart raced with old fear. Then I remembered. I held all the cards now. I'd already won. I declined the call and tossed the phone into the passenger seat. The road stretched ahead, endless and open. In the rearview mirror my old life grew smaller and smaller until it disappeared entirely. And for the first time since finding that workshop full of photographs and lies, I smiled. Not because I was happy, that would come later maybe, but because I was finally, completely, irrevocably free. Marcus had left me with wounds that might never fully heal. But he'd also, inadvertently, given me the tools to perform the most elegant surgery of my life. Cutting away everything false, everything poisonous, everything that wasn't truly mine. The leather notebook beside me held the beginning of something new. Not revenge, not bitterness, but my own story. The real one. The one where Vivian Cross wasn't anybody's wife, anybody's victim, or anybody's fool. She was just herself. Flawed, fierce, and finally free. And that was the greatest revenge of all. 6 months later, a postcard arrived at Elena's house. No return address. Just a photo of snow-capped mountains and 5 words written in familiar handwriting. "The view is better here." Elena smiled and tucked it into her journal, knowing that somewhere in those mountains, her best friend had finally found what Marcus's money and lies could never buy: peace. And in a small town in Arizona, a woman named Rebecca looked over her shoulder every day, waiting for a revenge that would never come. Because the worst punishment for someone who craves attention and drama? Being forgotten entirely. The offshore accounts were traced back to 17 families who'd been defrauded. Each received anonymous restitution. The FBI's investigation into Blake and Crane's operation resulted in 43 arrests across 9 countries. Marcus Cross's name never appeared in any of the reports. Logan Myers became a forensic accountant, specializing in financial fraud. He never married, but he found peace in bringing justice to those who'd been deceived by people they trusted. His mother's grave in Savannah always had fresh flowers. He never asked who left them. And Vivian? She learned to paint in her mountain cabin, filling canvases with abstract storms of color that sold in galleries under a name nobody connected to the Charleston scandal. She adopted a dog named Scout who'd never known betrayal. She learned to trust the sunrise if nothing else. Some nights she'd stand on her porch, looking at stars that had witnessed every human betrayal since the beginning of time and remained unchanged. And she'd think about the letter she'd never send, addressed to a ghost. "Marcus, you were right about one thing. I wasn't the woman you thought I was. I was stronger." If this story of betrayal, deception, and ultimate triumph touched something in you, remember that thousands of viewers find strength in these tales of survival and revenge. Subscribe now to join a community that understands sometimes the best revenge is simply surviving, thriving, and never looking back. Thank you for taking this journey with Vivian. May you find your own mountains, your own peace, and your own perfect revenge.